evening. I have the time as 7:37, so I will call the public hearing and regular business meeting of the Mayor and Council for the City of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, June 9th, 2025 to order. We'll start tonight with an invocation to be given by former City Council member Bobby Howard.
Thank you, Mayor. And join me in a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight as neighbors, as leaders, as members of this community we all care deeply about. We're grateful for those who serve and make decisions on our behalf, and we ask that you guide this council with wisdom, patience, and understanding. Lord, our hearts are heavy following the recent shootings at Briscoe Park, a place meant for joy, for families, and for peace. We lift up every person who was affected, the victims, their loved ones, and all who carry fear or sadness in their hearts. Wrap them in your comfort, bring healing where there is hurt, and calm where there is unrest. Help us, as citizens and leaders alike, to be a part of the healing. Look out for one another, to listen more deeply, to act with compassion and courage. May we come together not only in times of sorrow, but in continued partnership to build a safer, kinder Snellville. In it's your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Bobby. And now, for those who are able, if you will stand for the pledge to be led tonight by C.J. Pitt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we actually get started with the next item on the agenda, I did want to read a statement about the incidents that happened at Briscoe. And I just want to acknowledge the deep concern that many of you are feeling in the wake of the two separate and tragic shooting incidents that occurred at Briscoe Park recently. These acts of violence have no place in our city, and we share in your desires for answers. The first incident involved several of our community's youth, teenagers who should never have to face the trauma of gun violence. Our hearts go out to these young victims and their families, and we are committed to doing everything we can to support them as they heal both physically and emotionally. The second shooting involved a victim of domestic violence, another painful reminder of the far-reaching impact of these crimes. To that individual and their loved ones, we want you to know you are not alone. We stand with you and will continue to fight for the safety and dignity of all members of our community. In response to these incidents, we have immediately increased police presence and patrols at Briscoe Park. Officers are now conducting continuous proactive patrols during peak hours and after dark. We are also working with city staff to enhance lighting throughout the park, focusing on areas that were previously under-illuminated. Additionally, we are deploying updated surveillance technology and expanding our use of cameras to deter criminal behavior and to aid in ongoing investigations. Our police department is actively pursuing numerous leads in both cases. Detectives are working around the clock, following up on tips and reviewing evidence. While progress is being made, we still need the community's help. If you witnessed anything or have any information, no matter how small you may feel it is, we urge you to come forward. You can do so anonymously if needed. Your voice may be the key to bringing justice and peace to those affected. Please call, this is our City Police Department direct line, 770-985-3555 if you have any information. Briscoe Park is a place where families gather, children play, and neighbors connect. We are committed to restoring safety and peace there and throughout our city. This will take vigilance, collaboration, and trust, and I am confident that together we will rise to meet this challenge. Thank you. And now we have two ceremonial matters that we're throwing in here. One, I will recognize Kelly McAloon to come forward, and Greg Bender. Well, you're on the run, okay. Before we start hurting feelings, you're on the Run the Reagan Committee, and you're receiving a check, I believe, as the South Gwinnett
We're both
Cluster
on the other
Foundation.
committee, and so is CJ. Come on up here.
Let the record reflect that the first man was insulted by his wife.
I second that motion.
Gentlemen.
Okay, well, CJ, Pitt, and myself, we're on the Run the Reagan board, and Ron apologizes. He's having hip surgery, and he was unable to attend tonight. All three of us, including Melvin Everson, Jimmy Norton, Angela Sneed, and who else is on the South Gwinnett Cluster Foundation. So, Run the Reagan, we have three recipients that received the funding. The South Gwinnett Cluster Foundation got the $15,000, and I'll let you speak in a minute. Brookwood received $20,000, and the Lilburn Co-op received $15,000. So we're just excited that we got $15,000 for South Gwinnett, and I will turn it over to our director, Greg Bender.
Hey, thanks. So no, I just want to shout out to Kelly. She worked extremely hard as part of the staff, as did CJ, in making sure the South Gwinnett Cluster was one of the big recipients of the fund that were raised at the Reagan. I want to thank anybody who's here that participated. We appreciate your participation. The good news is that, Barbara talking about the teenagers and the kids that were affected at the park, what we do is the exact opposite, right? We help the teenagers at South Gwinnett High School see better, get better, and with educational things primarily. And we are just super happy to be an organization to help take care of the kids within the South Gwinnett Cluster. So thank you for your time.
Okay, we need a picture for the paper. Thank you, Michelle. Where's Brian? I'm right here. Oh, okay. Jason's not here.
You know how you have to get a few.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have one other little surprise ceremonial matter. We are doing a proclamation 2025-12. Recognizing Antonio Brito and Shante C.J. Pitt for their heroic and life-saving actions. Whereas on Sunday, June the 1st, 2025, T.W. Briscoe Park was hosting a large flag football event with hundreds of visitors, including many families with young children. And whereas, with reports of an altercation between two visitors from outside of Snellville and of a person shot, city resident C.J. Pitt and his father-in-law, Antonio Brito, immediately evaluated the situation and took swift action. And whereas, demonstrating exceptional courage and compassion, C.J. and Antonio ran towards the location of the shots and promptly assisted the individual who had been injured, administering life-saving direct pressure to the bleeding wound until the ambulance arrived. And whereas Antonio is a retired Marine Corps and Vietnam War combat veteran, CJ is a retired U.S. Army medic. And whereas as a result of Antonio's and CJ's emergency training, as well as their split-second response and effective intervention, the wounded individual is alive today. And whereas Antonio and CJ acted with selfless concern for the welfare and protection of our community, responding without hesitation to a distressing and potentially dangerous situation, an extraordinary act for most, but a natural instinct for two men who lived their life in service and sacrifice. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Barbara Bender, Mayor of the City of Snellville, Georgia, where everybody's proud to be somebody, do hereby join with our entire City Council and the residents of Snellville to recognize Antonio and Shante for their courageous, heroic, and life-saving actions. Proclaim this 9th day of June, 2025. So CJ, come on up.
Let's do one here. Thank you.
It is coming.
Memo.
CJ didn't know that we were going to do that to him tonight. Okay, so now we will move to the minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of the May 27th, 2025 specially called meetings.
There is a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. We have no invited guests or committee or department reports, so we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda, June 9th, 2025, as published.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
With the motion and a second, all in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. We have no items tonight under public hearing, consent agenda, or old business, so we'll move to new business. We have A, second reading, ordinance 2025-11, adoption of the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for each fund of the City of Snellville, Georgia, appropriating the amount shown in each budget as expenditures expenses, adopting the several items of revenue anticipations, and prohibiting expenditures or expenses from exceeding the actual funding available. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-011 for the adoption of the Snellville fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
There is a motion. Is there a second? With the motion and a second on the table, any comments or discussion by council?
I would just like to thank Matt Pepper and Mercy Montgomery for their dedication and hard work to put this budget together. There's a lot of moving parts, particularly when you're dealing with all of us and our requests. So I appreciate the work that you and the rest of staff have done to get this across the finish line for us, on time.
Any other council members? Matt, did you want to go over any key points, or I'm putting you on the spot, I think?
Sure, Mayor. I'll go over a few things.
He's looking at me like, what did you want me to say?
So we discussed the last public hearing. You know, by law, the city is required to adopt a balanced budget every year. And what that means is that our revenues and our expenditures are equal. And so let me just run through a few basic tenets of this budget for everyone's benefit. So this year's budget is a total budget of $16.9 million. It is about $500,000 or 3.2% more than it was the previous budget, or I guess this existing budget. The increase is due in part to some additional positions that we'll be adding to our Parks and Rec department. When our community center comes online, we'll have a few full-time positions and many part-time positions that will help with the operation of the center. In addition, this budget includes the city's responsibilities to maintain and operate the Grove. It also doesn't include any transfers to our stormwater fund or our sanitation funds. And we budgeted a balance drawdown of $692,000 in fund balance. And fund balance basically is your accumulated net money that you have over the course of a budget. So we will not be, well, I guess it's not my place to say, but this budget does not include a millage increase. It is a budget that is at 4 mills, which has been the millage rate for the last at least 3 years. And that's my report.
Thank you, Matt. And just a few other comments. One thing that Matt alluded to was that there'll be no transfers in this budget. In the past, well, since I've been on council, so 18 years, the city has been funding any shortfalls in the sanitation funding for residential garbage sanitation pickup. And probably for the last 12 to 15 years of that time, the city managers across time have been saying that needs to stop. The sanitation fund needs to support itself. It's an enterprise fund, so revenue should cover expenses. But as a council, each council that's been up here and in all of that time frame, we have not gone along with the staff recommendation on that, and continue to support the residential sanitation pickup through just general fund taxes. And but we've known for the last probably 5 years that this train was coming to an end. It's been building. The sanitation, when I was first elected, I think the transfer that the general fund made to support the residential garbage pickup was about $380,000. This past year, it's a little over $1.3 million. In that time span, that's how much sanitation has increased. Our issue is really coming home to roost because when we go out to bid on sanitation, it's typically, what, like a 3-year contract that we initially start with?
Yeah.
So they bid for 3 years.
And then there's several kind of clauses in the contract that allow you to extend that contract.
Right.
In the current contract, the amount of extensions that you can have that bring the total contract to about a 10-year contract. And that 10 years is coming up.
So we're at the end of that. This year, item, I think it's one of the items here we've got coming up is 3%, item E, is a 3% increase in our contract. So each of those interim years after the initial contract is up, then we can manage to renew the contract for a negotiated rate increase. And typically that runs between like 3 to 5% depending on what the economy is doing and what costs are doing. But as Matt said, we're coming to the end of that renewal period. And so next year we have to go out to bid. And we know through talking with other cities and other counties that the residential rate for garbage pickup is going to really significantly increase, almost 50% to what we're paying right now. So we're just not going to be able to fund that without a serious increase in the millage rate. So we're taking the step this year to create a user fee for solid waste. That's what the next ordinance reading is doing, and then establishing that fee to be included on the property tax bills this year. This is not something that any of us want to do, but I can tell you for my part, I have pushed this off as long as we possibly could. Didn't want to do it back during recession time, didn't want to do it while everybody was digging out of the recession. Then we ran into COVID, certainly didn't want to add these kinds of costs on during COVID. When I look at it from that perspective on how long we've been able to push this cost out without raising our millage rate for the past probably 5 years, I think we've been at 4 mills. I feel like we've done well to get us to this point, but unfortunately we're just at that point where there's just not much further we can go on still doing this. The one thing that I do like about this being a user fee versus just a millage rate increase is that that user fee is dedicated and has to go to the sanitation fund. So this council or future councils can't just start monkeying around with the budget with that extra tax revenue coming in and spending that money where they want to. It's got to be used for sanitation. So I think that is the largest change that's in here. Most of the expenses covered where we've had expense increases for grove operations and things like that, a lot of those costs are being defrayed by rental income that we'll be receiving from the market building and then also from the second floor of the library. So, and a lot of those other costs in the Grove are shared costs between the property owners. So I don't feel like those have as much of an impact. But, and I would say the other largest item in the budget where costs have really gone up over the last 4 to 5 years have been in police salaries. If you all remember back, especially 2020, those COVID years, we could not get police officers. People were leaving law enforcement. The rates were, salary rates were very low. We made a concerted effort over a 3 to 4 year period to increase our public safety salaries. And I think after the events of at Briscoe Park, I think everyone knew beforehand that a strong police department was really our best asset, and we certainly can't fail this department. We've also had to raise salaries in all of our other Parks and Rec and Public Works as well, because you can't find people anymore. And but we are at a salary point now where I think all of our positions are filled, or most, in the Parks and Public Works.
All but one in the recycle center, Public Works, and then one maintenance position at the park. So we're doing good.
So we've been able, with the increases we were able to do, we are able to attain, attract and retain staffing, which is important when we're trying to deliver quality services to our residents. So that was probably a little bit too much information for everybody, but we do have a motion to approve and a second. Any other comments by council? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. The millage rate, this budget does anticipate us retaining the 4.0 mills, but that millage rate, when will we do that? In July? We won't get the, we have to wait for the county to give us the digest, so we know what the property tax rates are, and then we set the millage rate, but we're anticipating it to stay at 4.0 mills. Then we have item B, second reading, ordinance 2025-12, an ordinance to amend the solid waste ordinance to provide for and amend procedures establishing fees for solid waste, to provide severability, to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide an effective date, and for all other purposes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-12 to amend the solid waste ordinance.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments or questions by council? Nope. All right, then all in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. Then we have item C, consideration and action on resolution 2025-08, resolution by the city of Snellville, Georgia, establishing fees for standard residential weekly collection of refuse and recyclables. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 2025-08 as read by the mayor.
There is a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. And in that resolution, if you haven't looked at it in the package, that fee would be, it's $20 per month, so it's $240 a year. Any comments or questions by council? Discussion?
I agree completely with the mayor's assessment of the budget and how we really do need to move to this particular action. This resolution, nobody, of course, wants to see another $20 per month added to their tax bill. However, it is, I feel, the best option in comparison to passing a general tax increase for our entire population. User fees are much more equitable and a fair way of distributing a service. You know, you have the actual individual who is receiving the service. That's the person that's paying for the service. It is a good option. We cannot continue to draw money from a general fund over to an enterprise fund. It's not best practices in terms of budgeting.
Anyone else? Okay, then I will call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. We have item D. First reading, ordinance 2025-13, ordinance to amend the offenses and miscellaneous provisions ordinance, chapter 38, to delete a section related to loitering, to provide severability, to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide an effective date, and for other purposes. This is a first reading, so there won't be any action taken, and we will have the second reading and final vote on the July 14th agenda. But what we're doing on this, we found a provision in our code on loitering that is actually unconstitutional. So we are removing that. There were some law changes in the past and some court cases, I believe, that came out that render this section unenforceable. So we are just removing this section from our code. We do have another loitering section in our code that the police actually use. It's not this one. So is there a motion?
Motion to waive the first reading of ordinance 2025-13 and place it on the agenda of the July 14th meeting for a second reading and public hearing.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. Next, we have item E, consideration and action on request by Waste Management for a 3% consumer price index increase. As I alluded to in the budget discussion, this is just annual renewal that we are still allowed under our current sanitation contract for a 3% increase. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the request by Waste Management for a 3% CPI increase.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion by council? Nope. Then I will ask for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. All right, the next couple of items are just reappointments to all of our boards. So these are my nominations. I'm asking for council to confirm the reappointments for the following item F. This is Board of Appeals members, all with a term expiration date of June 30th, 2027. Post 3, Emmett Clower. Post 5, Betty Ann Kuman. And Post 6, Lori Ann J. Spears. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. Then I'm asking for nominations and reappointment for the following to the Planning Commission board members. Post 1, Robert Windsor. Post 5, Stephen Brust. And Post 6, Michael Kissel. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. Then we have item H, my nominations for reappointment to the following Parks and Rec board members. For Post 1, Dale Stanley. Post 5, Nicole Irish. And Post 6, Barbara Harris. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. And then 1 reappointment to the Downtown Development Authority, the Development Authority of Snellville board member. Post 1, Deborah Jones, with a term expiration of June 30th, 2029. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. Okay, so that ends our regular business meeting, so I will close that, and we will move to council reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'd like to begin by first commending our Public Works Department, especially our recycling center. We, council and the mayor, went to an event this week, and it felt so good to have members of governments in the Gwinnett County area, and even Gwinnett County commissioners, to commend our recycling center. It's state of the art, and so many communities wish they had something such as ours. So I'd like to commend our Public Works Department. On Tuesday, June 4th, I attended the Active Adult Center All That Jazz event. It was a sold-out success. Everybody wore white, including me. I just want to make it clear for those of you who don't know that the Active Adult Center is composed of active adults. There are not people in there, walking around disabled. Of course, all of us old folks have our little infirmities, but it was really, really heartening. Everybody had a good time. It was well put on. There was lots of laughter. There was good music, great food. In fact, they had so much food, they had to have people take food home. It was really great. So I want to commend Director Kathy Gargiulo and Program Coordinator Tracy Mason-Glass. Absolutely fantastic. I want to thank all of you who have contributed to Give Hunger the Boot campaign. Our little box is out there, and I really appreciate your donations in helping me to carry on the legacy of Dave Emanuel. Most heartening was I found out that one day last week, and this is profound, 165 people were applied at Snellville, at the Southeast Co-op for assistance in one day. 165 people. That's profound. And that's something that we all should realize, that there is a big need out there that you are helping to fulfill. So thank you for that. This is the last week for elections to state commissioner. I voted on Saturday, the end of the first week, I think it is. I was 120. That's pathetic, Snellville. That's just pathetic. The state commissioners take care of your utility bills and all that sort of, they set the rates, help to set the rates. They approve a lot of other things involving infrastructure, and we really need to be more concerned. You know, when it comes to government, goodness starts from the bottom up, not from the top down. And too many people minimize the importance of these municipal and state elections. But these things touch you more importantly than anything done in Washington, D.C. As you can tell about things we've been talking today about our waste management and other things and millage rates. So voting in these elections is important. I know things have cut down and there's only one place to go now, all the way up to 3025 Bethany Church Parkway, which is sad. But it's all we have, but we have to resolve ourselves to vote in these elections. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for coming. Hope to see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Norman, and we'll go to Councilmember Hetherington.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm going to step on territory that's normally Norman's. I know that he is working hard with Gwinnett DOT, working on the intersection of North Crestview and Highway 78. I was driving through there, I think it was Tuesday night of last week, coming up 78, making the left turn onto North Crestview. I had the very clear right-of-way. There were no other vehicles coming towards me on 78, and the person turning left off of North Crestview went around my car as I was turning. Had I not been paying attention and had new-ish brakes on my vehicle, it would have been bad. It would have been really bad. There was a woman, an elderly woman in the passenger seat of that vehicle who would probably not be alive at this point had I not been able to stop before I hit him. So I want to thank Norman for working so hard on that and working with Gwinnett County and to reaffirm my support for what needs to be done out there and how Norman is fighting for that, because that was a scary evening. I want to thank our returning board members that were nominated and affirmed this evening, and our board members that are in this room that are not up for, not back up this year. Thank you for serving your city. It is often, it's not unappreciated. People just don't know what you do. They appreciate it, they just don't know it. And we thank you so much for what you do to serve this city. And lastly, check on your people. I work in healthcare. We have had, in my clinic alone, an exceptional number of people diagnosed with cancer in the last few weeks, and way too many in the next couple of weeks that are going to get that news. Check on your people. Make sure your people are okay. Not everybody shares what's going on, so if your people are quiet, check on them. Give them an extra hug. And thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Carrie. Councilmember Linsky.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We have a great new business that is now open on the Grove, Playa Bowls. Some of you have had the opportunity to go over there and sample. We'll get over there this week. We're going to officially do a ribbon cutting on Thursday, the 12th at 3 p.m. So if you can, stop by. If you can't come then, do stop by at some point. We are, just a great farmer's market opening for June last Saturday. So there was not a parking space open in the City Hall lot. So just wonderful atmosphere. We even saw a cat on a leash, which is an interesting sight, which I appreciated, of course.
Was it yours?
No, it was not. It was a fancy one. All of mine are rescues that have issues of some sort. Next week, or actually, got about 10 more days or so before June 19th hits, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're putting the finishing touches on Unity Day for Snellville Youth Commission, and it's going to be a great time on Saturday. We're going to do a run of show, so Hopefully, we'll work out any technical issues that we might have with the sound system, power, grid, those kinds of things. And I just wanted to take a moment again to say thank you to CJ and to Antonio. I wish Antonio would have been here tonight, but I understand these are men that do not like to be the center of attention. What they did was instinct. I would have definitely run the other way. I actually, probably with all of my school training, I would have gone through my school routine more than anything else, like many of the young people did at Briscoe Park. So thank you so much for your awareness. Your situational awareness was flawless, and I appreciate that. And happy Father's Day to everyone coming up this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Mayor Pro Tem Warner.
Oh, so much has happened since the last meeting. I want to thank Kelly McAloon and the rest of STAT and all the volunteers for a fabulous event. We had our first concert with Chi-Town Transit Authority, a Chicago tribute band. It was fabulous. And then Food Truck Friday, this last Friday, if you weren't there, it was happening. There were people dancing, there were people building community. That's the best way to put it, building community, which is fabulous to see after the events of the previous weekend. We are blessed to have heroes among us, and I just want to say thank you to the two gentlemen who showed their true colors. Even though Antonio's not from here, he now is an honorary citizen of Snellville because he earned his stripes, and I thanked him for his service. This was kind of a tough meeting for me because I'd spent the last close to 20 years fighting to keep our solid waste as part of our being paid out of your general fund taxes. It was originally offset, the cost was offset by our commercial garbage service, paid a little bit extra, and our state-of-the-art, now 20-some years old, recycling center brought in enough money that we were able to pay for a majority of that cost. That's no longer the case. Commercial no longer pays a additional fee to offset residential, and the market has changed, and recycling no longer brings in the wealth of money. On some items, we're lucky if we break even, but it's still a service that's important for us to provide for our citizens. I looked before our last meeting at what my cost was on one of my properties that's in the county, and the garbage cost was slightly under $300 a year. And my house in Summit Chase, which is valued around $400,000, the property tax for the city of Snellville, I think, was $456 or $411. So I think I pointed out at the last meeting that we got Public Works, Parks Department, best dang police department in the state, planning and zoning, and of course our administration for the grand fee of what, $120 if you back out what Gwinnett County residents pay for their garbage service. So I hate that we had to make that move, but when you look at it in light of the actual expenses and everything that this city provides for the amount of property taxes that we pay, it's a amazing bargain, and I salute you all for keeping it that way. I had jury duty today, and I'm sad to say they rejected me. I don't know why, For some reason, when you've spent 20 years working in a small municipality with the best dang police department in the state, some criminal defense attorneys think you might not be the best person to sit on their defendant's case. So I was free. But thank you all for being here. And again, thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you, Todd, and I'll make a shift because I skipped right over Councilmember Schultz.
That's perfectly all right, I understand. I also want to add to Norman's shout out to our Public Works Department. We learned in our work session that they found the leak for our splash pad, and the splash pad should be open this weekend? Hopefully this weekend. I know I have a granddaughter that's interested in it, but we had received an estimate from a company on what it was going to cost, and it was like, oh, we hated that. But the problem was the water line ran under Clower Street, and it was going to be a difficult fix. But our Public Works crew came through for us, and we're very, very grateful. And I know the kids of Snellville are. CJ, we are so, so grateful to you and it was your father-in-law, correct? Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just want to thank all of you that have sent me cards, prayed for me over the last couple months after my spine surgery. I'm just very, very thankful for all the thoughts. I'm doing so much better now. A month or so ago, I was thinking, am I ever going to feel better? But the last couple of weeks have been kind of a turning point for me. And of course, I'm very, very grateful to my caregiver, Kurt. Without him, it would have been, I probably would have had to go to rehab, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you all, and I am doing better. Not totally better yet. They told me that that type of surgery takes about a 6-month recovery, but I've made a lot of progress recently, so thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, Gretchen, and I will just go ahead and close my mayor's report. I feel like I've talked too much tonight. So I will now open the floor to public comment. Anyone who would like to come forward and speak on one topic for 5 minutes, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Tricia Rollins, 2088 Harbor Oaks Drive. Just a praise for, I don't know if it's Tony or Officer Green back there. We have got most of the traffic and trash and everything picked up in the Snellville Pavilion. The salon this week so it has been heavenly to get to some sleep for the last week. The last 20 years, it's been sporadic sleep, and now I feel like we've gained some ground, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Suzanne Krieger, 2612 Lake Street, Snellville. I wish to address the situation that occurred at the April 28, 2025 City Council meeting where a citizen was reprimanded for taking up the opposition's time in a public hearing for a proposed rezoning when the citizen had stated up front that they were neutral and asked to speak in the time period allocated to those in support of the project. As a representative from the area that is directly impacted by the rezoning, and as a citizen who spoke in opposition to the same proposed rezoning at the council meeting that night, I thought it important that I voice my thoughts on this and make it known that I had no objections to her speaking that night, regardless of the time period to which her questions and presentation were assigned. I want to express my support for this citizen and for her thinking outside the box and trying to ask what she considered to be neutral questions, but to not have the questions count against the opposition. A citizen that took the time that she did, she watched the video of the Planning Commission meeting, studied the case documents, visited the site, and then wrote and prepared a presentation and gave it in a respectful manner. She should be applauded for her efforts and not reprimanded for them. It is commendable that she has an interest beyond what happens in her own backyard, something that I have heard more than one council member say they wish citizens would do. Maybe some consideration should be given to, during the public hearing on a particular item, not only having time periods in support of and in opposition to a particular item, but maybe there should be a third time period where neutral questions can be asked. At council meetings, I have heard individuals at public hearings get up to speak during the opposition's time period, but in reality, they never expressed opposition to the development. They simply asked questions. An example is a citizen asking us, mentioning that water backed up on their property, and they wanted to know if the runoff from their property would be considered or taken care of by the new development. In reality, it could not be determined that this individual is either in support of or opposed to the project. There are questions that address neither the pros or cons of a situation, and they are important questions, but they do not necessarily fall into a in support of or opposition to category. A third time period category would resolve this problem. We should encourage citizens to get involved and stay involved and not reprimand them when they do get involved. In summary, I wanted to express my support for this citizen who came forth, did a lot of homework on the proposal, and asked questions in the most respectful manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Karen Hardrick, 2280 Buckley Trail. Good evening, everyone. God is good, because I was going to say something similar to that, so I don't have to say anything, so ditto. But I do want to say thank you to our city manager who responded to my questions and has responded to several of my questions. So I want to say thank you to that, following up with that. I also would like to ask a question. I made a call to Gwinnett County Department of Transportation regarding Rockdale County Rockdale Circle. It has a bunch of grass and reeds. Everything is growing out of control, and we have coyotes and wildlife coming out. We have kids playing, our elders and so forth. We're on walk. And I've contacted them to come and cut it, and now they're saying that it's Snellville. So I've contacted Public Works, and now we're playing tennis. I've never seen Snellville cut it. It's supposed to be a county road, and the right-of-way, so much of it belongs to the county, and yet they're not cutting it. And so now it's getting way out of control. We have a fire hydrant there and everything. So it's a safety issue now, not to mention it's just blight. It just looks horrible. And you can go from, in particular, where I'm speaking of, it's on Rockdale Circle and Buckley Trail. But if you take Rockdale Circle from the Quick Trip and 78 all the way down to Skyland, you'll see patches of public space that is not being kept. And I don't know what the deal is. I've been here for 25 years, and that service is just not acceptable for us living here. It's always been well manicured, and it's not anymore. In the capacity of me being the membership director for Greater Eastside Chamber of Commerce, I would like to extend an invitation to the mayor and council to NCG's ribbon cutting on June 12th. I know you already have something on your calendar, but I would like to extend an invitation for the mayor and council to please come and attend. They're having a soft opening for friends and family on June 12th at 6 o'clock at their new location, which is over here at the Target area. We know where that's at. I will read off the address just in case. But I can also email you the actual address. It's at 1905 Scenic Highway, Suite 6000. And then open to the public, June 13th is going to be a grand opening. They're going to have raffles, give out free tickets, so you can see some of the latest movies, and it's going to be fun, fun, fun. So I want to extend that opportunity to everyone. And I do want to say, lastly, my prayers goes out to all of the family members and community members who was affected by what happened at Briscoe Park. This is something that is not representative of our city. We're stronger than that, and we can do better. So thank you for increasing police security, making sure we have lights, which we know we've all complained about lights before, but hate that we're being reactive to that, but we're getting down to it. So we're there to make sure that our parks and our streets will remain safe. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you June 12th. Have a blessed day.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public comment and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. That is 6 in favor with none opposed. We are done for the evening, and thank you all for coming out.